I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. Incredibly graphic testimony today in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. And we have to warn you, some of what you hear may...
This guy's uncomfortable. I don't know I'm talking about this.
Criminal lawyer Bruce Rivers might have cracked the case wide open, and not the way anyone expected. In a shocking deep dive that has legal circles spiraling and victims outraged, Rivers outlined how a series of courtroom blunders, missteps, and outright violations could flip the entire script on Sean Diddy Combs' conviction. Forget 20 years behind bars, Rivers says we could be looking at weeks, maybe even days, before Diddy walks out a free man. And it's not because of the clever technicality, it's because the entire trial might have been poisoned from the inside out.
So we just got this new audio from the Diddy trial, and it is pretty explosive. This is audio of a voicemail that Diddy left to the Jane Doe who's been testifying in this trial for the last couple days. And he sounds really annoyed. He's talking about her maybe giving him the silent treatment, and his response is, I got a busy life, I can't be dealing with your silent treatment, and we got to keep him.
It started with a single note. Juror 25 wasn't following instructions, the jury told the judge early on. A red flag? No, a neon billboard. The moment that note hit the judge's bench, the case was compromised. Rivers points to this as a key moment, an opening that could trigger a Rule 33 motion. For those of us who don't speak courtroom fluently, Rule 33 is the legal Hail Mary that lets a judge throw out a verdict and demand a new trial. And that's exactly what Diddy's lawyers are gunning for. They're not just pushing paperwork, they're coming for blood. They've already filed or are about to, and if the judge bites, 2 felony convictions could vanish like smoke. The irony is almost poetic. After years of allegations, dozens of civil lawsuits, and a 2-month circus of a trial, Diddy could slip through the cracks thanks to bad courtroom hygiene. Rivers didn't just stop with the Rule 33 angle, he went in hard on juror misconduct. Alternate juror number 6, a UN employee named George, reportedly lied about not knowing his status as an alternate and claimed the main jury didn't follow instructions. Whether George is exaggerating or exposing a scandal, one thing is certain, the legitimacy of this jury is now under fire, and when the foundation is cracked, everything above it starts to collapse. It doesn't help that the verdicts were a mess from day one. Acquitted on racketeering, acquitted on trafficking, but guilty on transporting? The jurors took less than a day to swing from gridlock to consensus after claiming they couldn't agree on the RICO charge. That timing alone is suspicious, and Rivers wasn't shy about pointing it out. He argues that the whiplash shift in consensus, especially after the jury flagged internal conflict, suggests they may not have been deliberating according to the law. Add to that the fact that some jurors gave awkward interviews afterward, one even admitted the graphic videos shown in court didn't feel all that extreme, and suddenly the whole process looks less like justice and more like a legal parody.
You know, I mean, the other thing that he said during that interview was that he took it in stride. You know, basically, he didn't say that, but I mean, he essentially did, and he says it was pretty tame, and it didn't have the impact that one would think.
And just when we thought it couldn't get murkier, whispers started swirling, not from tabloids, but from court insiders, former roadies, and anonymous paralegals who've worked the Southern District Circuit for years. The rumor that Diddy didn't just benefit from procedural chaos, that he orchestrated it. The talk in Manhattan court corridors is that there was a deliberate, calculated effort to sway the jury before they were even sworn in, a secret jury tampering network. That's the phrase, circling in hushed voices. Not subpoenas, not wiretaps, but influence. The kind of influence that doesn't show up on paper, but leaves fingerprints all over the verdict. The theory goes like this: selective jury research, back-channel communications, perhaps even private investigators feeding subtle disinformation to weaken jurors' impartiality. One source, an ex-investigator with ties to federal defense firms, claims Diddy's team may have used third-party consultants with past experience in jury psychology to identify sympathetic profiles before selection. That in itself isn't illegal, but combine it with alleged contact between alternates and full jurors, and now we're talking about contamination. Silent meetings, late-night messages, coordinated leaks. Could the verdict have been a fix disguised as due process?
That than what's just right here. But the defense is now going to try and see if they can poke holes in this verdict. They're going to do that by 2 ways. One, saying that there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. And number 2, that the jury was tainted. And if the jury is tainted, we have to have a new trial.
We've seen high-powered defendants play shadow games before. But if this jury tampering rumor proves even partially true, it wouldn't just be a scandal, it would be a blueprint. Diddy, convicted on just 2 lesser counts and already working the PR playbook by enrolling in self-improvement classes behind bars, would be positioned as the Houdini of federal court. He's doing programs to address violence, addiction, even therapy under the STOP initiative. But experts aren't buying the repentance. Calculated, said one former federal prosecutor, a classic move to curry favor before sentencing. Meanwhile, his victims, those who stood in court and described humiliating, degrading encounters fueled by substances, cameras, and coercion, are watching all this unfold with horror. Imagine testifying about freak-offs soaked in baby oil, only to see the man behind them possibly walk free because of courtroom technicalities and elite defense maneuvering. One juror said the footage looked pretty tame. Another said the content didn't seem forced. So now consent is being redefined on national television while the justice system tries to rewrite its own mistakes in real time.
And Cassie's part of this because who were the for? They were for her, so he could watch her. Who wants to watch another man's wife, honestly, or girlfriend? Not me. I just think you gotta screw loose when you do that, especially if you have 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
The emotional whiplash is real. The prosecution spent millions, experts estimate over $10 million of taxpayer money, trying to frame Diddy as the puppet master of a multi-decade criminal ring. Homeland Security, the FBI, the SDNY, all brought in for one goal: expose the truth. But what they got was a mixed verdict, a PR victory for the defense, and a Rule 33 motion that might pull the rug out from under their win. The verdict didn't silence the outrage, it lit a new fire under it. Women's advocates are calling the result a modern love story gone nightmarishly wrong. And one lawyer put it bluntly: if he escapes justice, what does that say to victims everywhere? Now the countdown to sentencing is ticking toward October 3rd, but Diddy's lawyers are trying to fast-track the process, not because they want resolution, but because the longer he stays in custody, the more cracks may appear in the foundation they're trying to demolish. They're pulling every thread: procedural bias, evidentiary imbalance, sentencing disparities. The goal? Turn a 2-count felony into time served or a wrist slap. He's already been behind bars since last September, and if Rivers is right, that could be enough. But here's where it gets darker. The courtroom games might just be the tip of the iceberg, because according to one former staffer who worked on Diddy's security detail in the early 2000s, this isn't the only secret the mogul's been hiding.
So that'll be coming up. I think they have a date in October, but they're asking for an expedited sentencing hearing, and the judge wants an array of cases showing how these cases have been sentenced in the past. In other words, with this 3553A factors, I don't want a disparity in sentencing, just because he's Sean Diddy Combs. But
Cassie Ventura sat in that courtroom, eyes swollen, voice trembling, recounting years of silent torment, only to now watch it all threaten to unravel with a procedural shrug. She told us how she was shoved, kicked, dragged across hotel floors, filmed in states no one should be filmed in, all while under the influence of more than just pressure. Her testimony wasn't just vivid, it was haunting. And yet here we are, staring down the very real possibility that her abuser might walk free because a juror misunderstood instructions. For Cassie, and for the others who risked everything to speak, this isn't just a legal technicality, it's a soul-crushing betrayal. Another woman, known only as Jane, recounted how Diddy allegedly choked her, beat her, then forced her into one of his infamous freak-off nights, all within hours. She wept as she described how she felt trapped, humiliated, degraded beyond recognition. She took the stand believing her voice mattered. But now, as lawyers argue over alternate juror timelines and sentencing precedents, Jane is reportedly devastated by the sudden shift in tone. According to one victim advocate who spoke to media outside the courthouse, these women feel like they were lured into a false sense of justice, only to be re-traumatized all over again. We're seeing the pattern again: wealthy defendant, slick defense, and a system that bends under pressure when money talks. Former acquaintances of Diddy, stylists, dancers, even an ex-bodyguard, are allegedly scrubbing their names from old connections, quietly purging mentions, deleting photos, ghosting inquiries. One high-profile music exec was overheard at a private brunch in LA muttering, "If he gets out, we all better lawyer up." It's not just Diddy's fate that's up in the air, it's the entire power structure that once protected and enabled him.
But if you look at where he's at, it could be anywhere from in the 50s, and we looked at it, and depending upon how the judge fashions the guideline calculation with all the factors set in.
Because there's another layer to this, one so shadowy, so explosive, that even his most loyal insiders won't talk about it on record. We're talking about what some now call the freak-off vault, an alleged private archive of explicit footage spanning decades. According to 3 former employees who spoke anonymously to Inner City Press, Diddy kept detailed recordings of his parties, his so-called ritual nights, and his high-profile guests. Not just tapes of his partners, but tapes of them, actors, athletes, politicians, executives. even fellow artists whose entire brands would crumble if those videos ever surfaced. Speculation is that these recordings weren't just trophies, they were leverage. Insiders whisper about locked rooms, encrypted drives, safe deposit boxes overseas. One former road manager claimed he once saw a visitor offered a USB drive as a reminder to behave, only to be told, you know what's on it, don't forget. If that's true, then this vault wasn't just a stash, it was protection, insurance. A firewall of blackmail against anyone who might turn on him. And now, no one knows where that material is. Did it vanish during the raid? Was it moved before the subpoenas hit? Did someone close to Diddy already secure it, planning to use it or destroy it if the legal tides turned against him? One particularly grim theory being passed around in industry circles is that if Diddy walks, the tapes get burned, but if he stays locked up, they leak. A scorched earth move that could bring down more than just Diddy. Marriages, record labels, studios, gone overnight.
Illegal. And a one-time offender is not going to go to prison over something like that. However, this has got a lot more yuck factor to it, wouldn't you think?
This isn't wild conjecture. A sealed exhibit list from an earlier civil suit reportedly included references to personal digital media seized from Combs' properties, hard drives, cell phones, even backup tapes, labeled by date and city. While prosecutors never introduced them in open court, legal analysts say it's likely that some of these materials were deemed too explosive, too off-topic, or perhaps too connected to people outside the immediate scope of the case. One source claimed the government didn't want to fight a dozen mini-trials inside the trial itself, but if those materials resurface, the dominoes could start falling in all directions. And what happens to the victims if that vault disappears forever? Evidence, real or rumored, could be lost, buried, sold, or silenced. That means the very proof these women need to keep fighting might be slipping out of reach. And if the people implicated in those recordings are still powerful, still connected, they may be more motivated than ever to make sure we never see what's inside. Some have even speculated that hush agreements are being negotiated in the background, quiet settlements, anonymous transfers, the kind of deals that never see daylight but make problems go away. Meanwhile, Diddy is crafting his comeback from a prison cell. He's enrolled in therapy programs, participated in abuse-focused group sessions, and joined anti-violence initiatives. All moves critics say are carefully choreographed to paint him as reformed. According to one skeptical attorney, he's doing exactly what you do when you want the judge to shave your sentence in half. But here's the kicker. These rehabilitative efforts, however performative they may seem, do influence judges. And with sentencing scheduled for October, every minute Diddy spends in a program helps tip the scales.
That's hard and fast. It's not appealable by the government. It's not appealable by the judge. The judge can't overturn an acquittal. That is sacrosanct. It is done over. He can't be tried again for those counts, no matter what. No matter what.
Diddy's sudden transformation from mogul to model inmate is raising more eyebrows than applause. Inside the Brooklyn MDC facility, he's reportedly joined multiple rehabilitation programs, from the Stop Anti-Violence course to therapy sessions focused on controlling aggression and dependency. On paper, these efforts show accountability, but in practice they fit a disturbingly familiar pattern. High-profile defendants embracing redemption narratives just in time to influence the courtroom. Experts are calling it a redemption playbook, polished and rehearsed, designed to shrink sentencing, exposure, and soften public outrage. The optics are clear: a man who once orchestrated chaos, now humbly working on himself in government-issued sweats. Legal analysts familiar with celebrity defense strategy say this is classic pre-sentencing choreography. Programs like these, while valuable in theory, often become bargaining chips in plea negotiations and sentencing hearings. Judges, especially those new to criminal benches like Arun Subramanian, are more likely to be swayed by well-documented efforts at rehabilitation. It creates a neat story arc: fall from grace, realization, growth, that defense attorneys can wrap in glossy court memos and emotional appeals. The problem? None of it proves genuine remorse. It proves strategy. And for the victims watching this unfold, it turns an already painful process into a performative circus. What's more telling is the timeline. Diddy's legal team had already introduced his attendance in a batterer's program before the trial even began. That move, heavily emphasized during bail hearings, seemed designed to lay the groundwork for this exact narrative. Not a violent predator, they argued, but a man who recognized his flaws and sought help early. Now that he's been convicted on lesser charges, this early intervention becomes the centerpiece of a defense pivoting hard toward mitigation. It's not about innocence anymore. It's about control. Control of the message, control of the sentence, control of how history remembers this chapter.
So it looks like right now the judge is denying bail, meaning that he will not be released pending the sentencing hearing. I want to emphasize that there are two things happening basically at once. Today is about the conditions of release, if any, and it looks like the reporting from inside the courtroom is that Sean Combs will not be released on bail.
We've seen this play out before. Celebrities caught in high-profile legal battles often make public displays of healing to reduce backlash. Whether it was anger management for pop stars or rehabilitation stints for disgraced actors, the pattern is always the same. Give the public a redemption arc to latch onto while quietly asking the court for leniency. The difference here is scale. Diddy isn't just fighting for his reputation, he's fighting for freedom, and every minute spent in group therapy becomes ammunition. Not necessarily for change, but for leverage. And yet behind every staged apology and therapeutic worksheet, the core question remains unanswered. Is it real? Does rehabilitation count if it's orchestrated for leniency? Or is it simply a new kind of manipulation? Quieter, more polished, but no less self-serving. As the court prepares to weigh Diddy's fate this fall, we're left wondering whether we're witnessing true accountability or just another performance from a man who's mastered the art of staying one step ahead.
Separate, what we know is that there will be a sentencing hearing. The prosecution has said we're going to ask for a good deal of time. We don't know exactly what that is. And the defense obviously wants no time at all. So two different hearings on two different issues. The sentencing is not.
And so we find ourselves in this surreal moment. On one side, a pile of civil suits, a mountain of testimonies, and a string of shattered lives. On the other, a possible legal escape hatch, a missing archive of digital nightmares, and a defendant actively rewriting his public image from inside a federal facility. Justice, if it ever existed here, is now on a knife's edge. So what happens next? Does Diddy's rumored release open the gates to a new chapter of chaos? One where secrets are buried deeper, victims silenced harder, and the elite close ranks tighter than ever? Or are we on the brink of a reckoning, where the truth finally claws its way into the light no matter how many vaults or lawyers stand in its way? Is this the end of justice for Diddy's victims, or just the beginning of an even darker chapter? Let us know what you think in the comments. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and watch your back. The freak-offs might be over, but the fallout is just beginning.